stepdaughter's freeloading boyfriend wrecked our home, ruined our cars, and now they're squatting in shelters, refusing to let go of him. I call my stepdaughter's entitled boyfriend Wreck-It Ralph, no relation to the trademark cartoon, just coincidental naming. He has a tendency to break/ruin/tear up everything he touches. My stepdaughter, who is actually a sweet and endearing young woman whom I love dearly, has, like many young women with self-esteem issues, allowed herself to be led astray by Veer. In the year they've been together, she's lost everything, but at 23 she is old enough to learn her lessons without us parents coming to her rescue until she gets rid of Veer and back on track. When they first got together, they lived with her dad and myself for a few months. It very quickly became apparent Veer had a chip on his shoulder when it came to me. He would carry tales to my husband, causing us to argue, despite my husband telling Veer many times that was my house and everything. And it was mine. Veer would keep asking my husband, not me, if he could have this or that, and that's if he asked. He kept getting more and more animals despite our telling him no more. Neither were taking care of the ones they had. They weren't buying dog or cat food or cat litter, my husband and I were. They weren't picking up the messes, and they weren't training them, allowing them to tear up our belongings. Mary Jane is legal in our state, and there is a dispensary in our town, and the only work these two would do is door delivery, her job with a daily payout, just to get enough money for Veer to make a purchase at the dispensary every day along with eating at fast food restaurant. Veer's chip on his shoulder when it came to me was such that they brought my husband a soda one night, walking in the back door right past me, calling out loudly, "We got you your favorite soft drink," to my husband, in the living room with zero inclusion to me. Another example is my stepdaughter asking if she could use my debit card to go get the four of us drinks at a local convenience store one hot day. My husband and I were unloading stuff from the truck and trailer in the backyard, which was no problem. However, when checking my account, they spent $20 on food for Veer without asking. The end came when I told them they had to replace the bedroom door their dog chewed the bottom out of, and refused to allow the pit bull mix they wanted to rescue, even though it had a bite history, to enter my home. They moved to my stepdaughter's mother's home at that point. During their time there, my stepdaughter kept getting tickets in her car, which is only registered to my husband. They weren't paying their insurance, which I had bought my stepdaughter her own policy and paid the startup out of my money when they lived with us, and didn't pay the plate renewal. Now her license is suspended, and it cost my husband and I $600 to get the plates, again in his name only, unsuspended. Plus they had damaged the car and it needed repairs. So he took it from them. Before her license was suspended, but after the police took the plates from her car, my husband let her use his truck, which was on my insurance policy. Veer drove it, and he has no license, and blew the motor in it. It is now sitting and can't be used. I told my husband I would put the car on my insurance for him, but only if he drove it. If he returned it to them, I was canceling the insurance, which I've stood by. Nevertheless, Veer called daily demanding my husband return the car to them once it was legal and fixed. After 3 weeks my husband finally said, "Look, you dumbass, I don't know what it is that you think you're trying to accomplish here, but you're not demanding anything from me and you're not getting the car back. I may have originally bought it for her before she got with you, but it is my car in my name and I'm keeping it in lieu of the truck you ruined. Don't call me again about the car. Got it?" We had been hearing of ongoing disputes between my husband's ex and Veer. Things got so bad there that Veer told my husband's ex-wife to pack her shit and get the F out of her own home. Another time he told her to shut the F up and remember who she's talking to. So we all decided it was time to let our daughter hit rock bottom, since she wasn't seeing how Veer had taken her from being a sweet, lovable, well-liked and responsible girl in a college nursing program to this person with a criminal history and no prospects at the moment. My husband's ex-wife moved in with her boyfriend, turning the power off at the home she had been renting, and told her former landlord, whom she was actually long-time friends with, she wouldn't allow it to affect their friendship if he evicted them for squatting, since neither were on her lease to begin with. When my stepdaughter called wanting to come back, my husband told her she could, but Veer could not. Now they are staying at a homeless shelter in the town where Veer's mom lives, and Veer's mom won't let them live with her either. We hate to see her go through this, but this entitled Veer she won't let go of has really brought her down, and she can do so much better. This guy actually told us once he couldn't work at a factory that he interviewed at because it was climate controlled and his heart condition won't allow that. Then argued with me and my husband that climate controlled meant controlled by the climate, so it was hot in summer and cold in winter. We haven't seen him hold a job or do anything useful and productive since they've been together, just demand from and use the people who love the girl he's become a Klingon to. Update 1. Well, we are making progress, anyway. My stepdaughter recently had court in town 30 miles west of us. They are staying just across the state line in a small city 30 miles east of us. So my husband and I devised a plan to get her a loan from him. We said the only car running was the 2-seat convertible and could only take her for her court appearance. My husband picked her up. Then I took her to her court appearance as my husband had to be at the house for something. On the way, she started talking about how she wanted to break up with Veer but was afraid of the hurt that comes with it. She hated how controlling and untruthful he was, but felt he truly loved her and didn't know if the negative behavior was simply from their stressful circumstances. She said once he got SR-22 insurance and his license back he would be able to work and things would be better. I pulled over, pulled out my phone, and went to the court file website for the county north of us, where Veer used to live. I pulled up 6 cases in his name, 3 to do with driving with multiple citations in each. The most recent, he was speeding, ran a stop sign, hit a woman, fled the scene, Had a suspended license and registration and had obviously no insurance. He was arrested later and had to post bond. That case he had $4,000 in fines, plus we had received a letter at our house from the state stating he owed $11,000 in restitution to the woman for damages and that his license was permanently suspended until the restitution, any related court-imposed fines, and state-imposed reinstatement fee was paid along with proof of SR-22 within 48 hours of release of suspension by the state. My husband accidentally opened it, it arrived in a stack of other mail and he didn't look at addressee. She was deflated and angry, stating they'd talked at length and he never told her any of that, only that he needed SR-22 because he got caught driving without insurance and had to have it before he could get his license back. As someone who used to have my own insurance sales license, I told her no, you can't get insurance if your license is suspended or revoked, at least not in our state. He would have to get his license valid then get insurance for mandated SR-22 reporting. She herself ended up on probation for her driving issues related to him with a 6-month suspension and $750 in fines. Lucky break from judge in all honesty. She too will have to have SR-22 once her suspension is over. Afterwards, while I stopped at the store to get stuff for supper, Veer kept calling and demanding she come back. Despite plans to have supper with her that evening, she ultimately gave in to the relentless calls and asked her dad to take her back before I could cook. I did verify that yes, she has an IUD for those that inquired. She was very unhappy with her situation and beginning to see him for what he is, and how in the year they've been together has brought her down. However, she's not quite at the leaving him point, but hopefully with any luck she'll be calling to come home soon. She knows she has a place here with us, but he doesn't. Update 2. First of all, I think you all probably know what developed immediately after I posted. Most of you, and myself, nailed it on the head. She was actually pregnant when I made the post, and kept it quiet until she was showing, giving her dad and I about 3 months to prepare for our granddaughter. She's a beautiful little girl, with eyes and a smile that light up the place. She's not quite a year old now. Sadly, my husband was killed unexpectedly when the baby was only 6 weeks old. My stepdaughter and I witnessed it, much to our horror. It has been a very devastating and emotional time since. This may surprise many of you, but she, the baby, and Veer all three still live with me, and guess what? He and she both have jobs now. He is actually a surprisingly good dad. He is still a bit more possessive of the 2 girls than I care for, however he also knows he will never have the pull and manipulation over me through my stepdaughter that he tried with her mother and my husband, so he knows his limits. Neither have driver's licenses and I do not routinely taxi them to work or back. They are adults with a child, but I will take them or pick them up on occasion. I let them know I'm proud of them both, and want to see them succeed. And by the way, Step has been differentiated for these posts only. In real life, neither my husband or I ever use Step when referring to our children and grandchildren. His kids are mine, just as mine were his, and that will never change. I will always love and be there for my stepdaughter and granddaughter as her parent. Even Veer learned I had his back on an incident I knew was not his doing or fault, but he was wrongfully getting blamed for. When my husband was killed, as she and I sat stunned in the ER with his body, Veer was the first family member through the door to us, still in his work uniform, having come straight from his job, falling to his knees in genuine tears and pulling us both into a tearful group hug as we all cried together. I give credit where credit is due. But here is our update. Bittersweet. Unexpected. Not at all how I, or probably most of you, would have thought things would pan out. Even the entitled Wreck-It Ralphs of the world do, sometimes it seems, have the potential to turn themselves around and begin to resemble normal, productive, team player people again. It's not perfect, but no one's life is. It's a damn good start in the right direction for them at least. And I'm grateful to still have them in my life too. These last months would have been worse without them. Update 3. Work has changed everything. I think I'll always pause before saying Wreck-It Ralph has grown up. That's a sentence that might jinx the universe, but the chaos he brought into my home, and into my stepdaughter's life, has shifted. There's still drama, mind you, but it's different now. Not less lively, just less apocalyptic. First off, after about 7 months at the bakery, Veer landed a promotion. I kid you not, my formerly unemployable disaster found his niche kneading dough and icing cupcakes. Maybe it's the endless carbs, maybe it's the 4 a.m. starts. Few people, not even Ralph himself, are predisposed to start arguments before sunrise, but for the first time in his adult life he's held down a job consistently for more than 3 months and actually brings home paychecks instead of headaches. I admit, I've caught him swiping an extra donut here and there for the baby, but I suppose there are worse crimes. My stepdaughter, who, after everything, is still the strong, resilient kid I always loved, took advantage of the stability and saved up enough to enroll in night classes at a local community college. Old dreams don't die that easy, and between feedings and shifts she's inching towards her CNA credential. I've never seen her so driven. Watching her pour herself into school, making flashcards on the back of fast food napkins, or hunched over a sleeping baby in the lamplit living room, just makes me proud to bursting. The little one, call her Daisy for the sake of the update, has enough energy to light up the whole block. I sometimes joke to their faces that I hope Daisy gets more of my temperament than either of her parents, but honestly, she's got all the best pieces of everyone. Her dad's rambunctious fearlessness, her mom's tender stubbornness, and, maybe, a little of her grandma's dry wit. She's walking now, and has taken to wrapping both parents around her finger by helping in every conceivable way, usually by carrying shoes into the hallway or singing to the mop as she trails spaghetti around my kitchen. But I mentioned it was a different kind of drama, didn't I? Well, here's where things get dicey again. About 2 months ago, Veer's estranged mother suffered a small heart attack. She's always been a tough customer, but suddenly Veer was shouldering real adult responsibilities for her, running groceries, arguing with her doctors, learning to decipher insurance paperwork. I won't say it transformed him overnight. He's still got the people skills of a caffeinated possum at times, but it made him confront what family ought to mean. Out of the blue, he's apologized out loud for everything he put my husband through, and started, get this, volunteering to watch Daisy while my stepdaughter studies or grabs an extra shift. He even, I can scarcely believe it, replaced the bedroom door his dog chewed up, on his own dime, plus fixed a broken outlet that's been bugging me for years. The real shocker? My stepdaughter and Veer have started making actual plans to move out next year, not in a scramble, and not into someone else's spare room, but into an apartment they're saving up for together. My husband's passing left a crater in all of us, and for a while it felt like maybe they'd never get their own feet under them again, but they're talking about budgeting, credit repair, and finding a reliable sitter who isn't me. You could have knocked me over with a feather. That's not to say they're suddenly the cleavers. Old habits die hard. Veer still gets weirdly defensive when I make any suggestion that involves rules, and my stepdaughter sometimes slides back into old patterns of nervous people pleasing. They bicker, Daisy throws peas, sometimes the whole place feels like it's faintly vibrating with leftover resentment and past mistakes. But, miracle of miracles, every day is quieter than the one before. This spring, we tackled something gentle but huge together. With my encouragement, and my gardening gloves, the three of us planted a tiny garden in the backyard, Daisy's sunflower patch. I like to think it was my late husband who pushed me to do it. He loved growing things. I watched them both teaching Daisy how to pat the earth, to splash muddy water onto roots, to marvel at those first little green shoots, and I realized this might be the first time their little family has nurtured anything together, not just clung to survival. And that's the honest thing I want you all to know. These two aren't suddenly saints, but they're building something real. Maybe it's a fragile little patch of sunflowers for right now, but it's theirs. Not perfect, but growing. As for me? I miss my husband every day, a sigh, a lost sock, a perfectly flipped pancake, all reminders of what he brought into our lives. But there's something healing, and, yes, sometimes hilariously chaotic, about having this new kind of family under my roof. Veer and my daughter are still finding their footing, and that's okay. As long as they keep trying, I'll keep giving them the room to make mistakes, to rebuild from the mess, and to figure out what kind of adults they want to be. If you'd told me this 3 years ago, I would have placed bets against almost all of it, especially the peaceful part. But it's true, sometimes, if you love someone enough to let them fail and then help them patch it up afterward, even the biggest wrecks can start laying foundations. Don't worry, I still keep my debit card locked up, and the garden gate triple latched. Some lessons never lose their value. But hope, weirdly, keeps poking through, right alongside those sunflowers. Update 4: strap in, because it's been a wild 6 months, unpredictable, tender, occasionally bizarre, and, as ever with Veer and my stepdaughter, surprisingly hopeful. You'd think after losing count of how many pieces of furniture Ralph has ruined in my home, nothing could shock me, but apparently, middle age does not dull my capacity for being flabbergasted. Let's cut to the headline: they moved out. But not without incident, and certainly not without drama. First, the miracle. They stuck to their plan. For the first time, boxes were packed with actual intention, no midnight scrambles or just one more week, please. Veer even color-coded Daisy's toys and books in boxes, which, if you've ever seen his version of tidying, is like discovering a gorilla composing a sonnet. They landed a perfectly shabby but serviceable apartment on the edge of the city, small kitchen, leaky shower, and a living room window nobody can open. And no, they didn't ask me to co-sign. I wouldn't have, lessons learned, and, more importantly, they never even tried. But moving day? Utter chaos, naturally. Veer announced he'd arranged a genius solution to hauling their stuff. His buddy from the bakery had a sweet side hustle, a battered vintage ice cream truck, gutted of everything but a broken freezer, a papered-over clown decal, and a Bluetooth speaker that only played Mazzy Star on loop. The sight of Veer and my stepdaughter offloading Daisy's supplies from a half-defunct ice cream van to the bemused stares of their new neighbors is now seared onto my brain forever. Daisy, of course, thought the truck was hers. Now she expects a popsicle every time she sees anything with wheels. But here's where the real story picks up. Adulting hasn't been gentle with them. Within a month, the lovebirds were locked in their first true standalone crisis. Landlord drama, the shower quit, the hot water gave up, a leak sprang over Daisy's crib. No backup. No idea whom to call. Veer, to his bizarre credit, read a blog about DIY plumbing and spent a night under that sink muttering threats at the pipes, Daisy helping by singing what she says is a plumber song. The next morning, the bathroom floor was swampy, but, yes, Veer called the landlord and let her into their lives without blowing up or making excuses. Small, but honest progress. My stepdaughter started her CNA clinicals and the exhaustion hit hard. Between clinical shifts and Daisy's sudden streak of night terrors, probably adjustment stress, you could see the fray in her eyes by week 3. She nearly quit. But Veer, absolute shock of shocks, stepped up in his thick-headed but earnest way. He started prepping dinner before she got home. His specialty is grilled cheese and instant soup, walked Daisy to the park every afternoon, and, hold on to your hats, even arranged a mother-daughter sleepover at my house, just to give her a real night's rest for once, Grandma. No one asked him. No one guilted him. He did it. Meanwhile, another curveball, visitation from Veer's estranged father. I'd never met the man, and based on Veer's gruff reluctance to even mention him, I thought hell might freeze over before we'd cross paths. But there it was, a knock at the door one Sunday, and there's Ralph S.R., stooped backbone, face like a battered terrier, apology written all across his posture. Turns out the heart attack scare with Veer's mom jolted Ralph Sr. into trying, however awkwardly, to patch things up with his only kid. After an uneasy cup of tea and about 24 apologies, I listened from the kitchen as the two men compared regrets and mistakes like old baseball cards. Veer actually softened. A little bit. More than I've ever seen. He apologized again, this time for real, for the hell he put all of us through back in the day. That brittle, defensive shell cracked, just for a moment, and a grown man peeked through. Let's not pretend we're living a fairy tale. The apartment has cockroaches, Veer swears they're only in the kitchen, Daisy colored on the living room wall with a Sharpie, and I still get frantic calls about lost mail, missing shoes, or why the oven won't shut. But now, those calls are less about fixing everything for them, and more about navigating adulthood as a team, even when team involves a rambunctious toddler in mismatched pajamas. Sometimes Veer and my stepdaughter bicker so loudly my phone vibrates off the table, but more often, I catch them laughing in the background as Daisy insists on being read the Plumber song before bed. The biggest transformation, though? That's me, I think. For over a year I braced for tragedy, for unfixable damage, for that old familiar feeling that love would never be enough to save anyone. But watching these three make something fragile but lasting, a family, however unruly, has made me realize, you don't always get the finish line you wanted, but sometimes you're lucky enough to cheer from the sidelines for people you never thought could go the distance. The sunflower patch in the backyard sprouted up wild this spring, seeds scattering well beyond our haphazard garden fence. Every time I glimpse bright yellow heads bobbing in unexpected corners, I'm reminded, growth isn't contained. Sometimes, despite wreckage, bad decisions, and every cracked door or blown engine, there's new life, and even a little beauty, on the other side. Update 5: if you thought the ice cream truck and the Plumber song were the peak of this particular adventure, just wait. Honestly, I wish I could send everyone reading this a care package, 1 part Lysol, 1 part aspirin, 1 part sunflower seeds, because that's about what it's taken to get through these last months. Let me get right to what you all want to know. Yes, the apartment is, mostly, still standing. There was a near miss in June. And by near miss I mean Veer's first attempt at fixing the oven nearly sent their smoke alarm into orbit. He's now been gently but firmly requested by both the landlord and my stepdaughter to stick to unplugging things and not much else. We're all safer that way. Incidentally, Daisy's Plumber song has now become a general anthem for household emergencies, and there was a solid 2 weeks where she refused to eat breakfast unless someone sang it first. At 3 years old, she's running the house with a combination of shrieking joy and absolute benevolent dictatorship. What's really changed lately, though, is the pace of their lives, and the size of their world. My stepdaughter passed her CNA licensing exam. Not only did she pass, but she did it with such grades that her instructor, who's old enough to have been her grandmother, took her aside and told her she was the first student she's ever had who could coax a combative dementia patient into calm with homemade animal crackers and a running commentary about her daughter's wacky dad. She's working regular days in a skilled facility a couple of towns over. It's a grind, but she comes home glowing a lot more often than she comes home defeated. If there was ever a come-to-Jesus moment for Veer, it was watching her pin her little CNA badge to a fresh scrub top. I swear, I caught him blinking back tears, though he later tried to pass them off as just allergies from the moving boxes. He's still slinging bread at the bakery, but now he's picking up the morning shift at a small engine repair shop too. His mechanical talents, such as they are, finally met something more forgiving than electrical work: lawnmowers. Nobody cares if you put a dent in a lawnmower, and apparently he's brilliant with carburetors. The owner, a wiry old vet named Mr. Jim, took to Veer shockingly fast and claims the shop runs better with him around, busted spark plugs and all. Who knew? Money's tight, but for the first time, it's not utter chaos. Last week, they paid all their bills early. They celebrated by letting Daisy pick out a goldfish. It did not survive her version of helping, but the gesture was real. The landlord even sent a thank you note for paying rent on time 3 months in a row. If you told me 2 years ago that Veer would one day be praised by a landlord, I'd have assumed we'd all been body snatched. But here's what really threw me for a loop. My stepdaughter called me last month, breathless and nervous, and told me she'd been talking with one of the night nurses about community events. That's how, without any consultation, my little family signed up for, wait for it, the County Fair Family Teamwork Cook-Off. I know. The same two people who I once had to forcibly separate after a screaming match about who let the dog eat the couch. Now volunteering to cook, publicly, for a panel of smirking retired teachers and one chain-smoking city councilman. Naturally, disaster loomed. In the week leading up, Daisy insisted on helping. She poured out all of the spaghetti noodles, tried to use a rolling pin on a raw chicken breast, and attempted to add glitter to the mashed potatoes, for sparkle, Grandma. On the morning of, I got a text from Veer. Do you know how to make roux? Asking for a friend. Their dish? Collaborative surprise casserole. It was crunchy in the wrong places, and we're still not sure what made it purple, but they finished. No one choked, nothing caught fire, and Daisy was awarded a future chef ribbon for enthusiasm, and staying on top of the table for almost the whole event. Afterwards, my stepdaughter beamed so wide I could see her braces from 20 feet away, and Veer, Ralph, finally, is still telling everyone about their trophy. It was a colander, but he's never owned a trophy before, so I say let him have this one. Meanwhile, my relationship with Ralph shifted. He's far from perfect, he's still spectacularly bad at boundaries sometimes, and stubborn as an overcooked Thanksgiving turkey, but in fits and starts he asks for advice rather than pretending he knows all the answers. He finally started therapy, on his own, after an especially tense argument with his dad. I suggested it gently, prepared for fireworks, and instead he simply nodded and said, maybe it's time. Can you watch Daisy so I can go? If you'd told past me that Veer would be initiating group text check-ins about emotional regulation skills, I'd have laughed until I cried. I'm not saying we're a Norman Rockwell painting yet. Some days they run out of groceries and text me for help. Daisy gets sick and they both panic. Ralph had to learn the hard way that cars don't magically renew inspections if you just believe in them. But there's dignity in the way they face their own mess now, and a real gratitude for the trampoline net of family behind them. We planted sunflowers together again this season. The patch is bigger than ever, and Daisy, muddy and exuberant in boots 3 sizes too big, keeps telling me, these ones are ours, Grandma. We grow them together. If this is what family looks like after the storm, I'll take every weird, imperfect moment. Once upon a time, I thought all you could do was protect what mattered most. Now I see sometimes your best power is to love through the growing pains and let people surprise you, again and again, however sideways the path runs.